Emily had always loved her husband and trusted in their love. She and Michael had been married for 10 years and had two wonderful children, Lucy and Max. In the early years of their marriage, Michael had been a caring husband and a devoted father. After work, he would always be by his family's side, spending time playing with the kids, helping Emily with household chores, and sharing warm, cherished moments together. However, things had started to change recently. Michael became busier, frequently staying late at the office and attending meetings that stretched into the night. Family evenings became fewer and farther between, replaced by messages like, "I need to work overtime," or "I have an unexpected meeting. Don't wait up for me." At first, Emily tried to be understanding, knowing that Michael's job required dedication and high responsibility. But the unusual signs grew more frequent. Michael no longer seemed excited to come home, often looking tired and avoiding Emily's questions about work. She noticed that he always seemed to have a reason not to come home for dinner, sometimes arriving late without offering any clear explanation. The family dinners, which had once been warm and lively, now consisted of Emily and their two children gathered around the table, missing Michael's presence. One evening, when Michael returned home late, Emily had prepared a delicious dinner of spaghetti, his favorite dish. She waited for him until almost midnight, but when he finally walked through the door, he simply said indifferently, "I already ate. You didn't need to wait for me." The disappointment hit Emily deeply. It wasn't just the wasted dinner that saddened her, but the growing distance between her and the man she loved. In the weeks that followed, Emily noticed that Michael was no longer attentive to her or the children as he once had been. He rarely smiled, rarely spoke, and seemed to avoid any conversations with her. On the evenings he did come home, he would give a cursory greeting before retreating to his office, closing the door, and not coming out again. He no longer watched movies with the kids or read them bedtime stories as he used to. Emily tried her best to rebuild the bond within the family. She organized weekend outings, hoping to create moments of connection. But Michael always found an excuse to decline. "I really need to prepare for an important project. You and the kids go ahead," he said coldly. Each time, Emily swallowed her tears and forced herself to stay cheerful for the children, not wanting them to sense the tension that was creeping into their family life. One evening, as Lucy and Max sat in the living room drawing, Emily heard the children giggling. Curious, she walked over and looked at Max's drawing, a picture of a small family with just 3 members. Michael wasn't included in the drawing. "Why didn't you draw Dad in the picture?" Emily asked softly. Max looked up at her and sighed. "Dad's always busy. He probably doesn't have time to play with us." Max's innocent words felt like a dagger to Emily's heart, shattering it into pieces. She knew she had to do something to save her family's happiness. But how could she, when it seemed like Michael had already stopped trying? Despite her efforts to address the situation, Emily couldn't deny the growing unease in her heart. Michael's explanations were becoming increasingly hollow. One evening, when Michael returned home late as usual, Emily decided to confront him directly. "Michael, what's going on? Can you tell me the truth?" she asked, her voice trembling. Michael glanced at her briefly, his eyes cold, and replied evasively, "It's just work, Emily. I don't want you to worry." But his tone lacked the warmth it once held. Without further discussion, Michael quickly headed upstairs, leaving Emily standing in the living room, overwhelmed by a profound sadness. That night, after Michael had fallen asleep, Emily took his phone to investigate. She felt a deep sense of guilt for invading his privacy. But the weight of her suspicions had become unbearable. On Michael's phone, Emily discovered messages from an unknown number. The texts were filled with sweet words of affection, promises, and even plans for meetups. The sender's name appeared as Sophia, Michael's secretary. It felt as though the ground beneath Emily's feet had crumbled. She couldn't believe that the man she loved could betray her so deeply. The messages pierced her heart like knives, leaving her breathless. She sank into a chair, tears streaming down her face uncontrollably. Emily couldn't comprehend why Michael had changed so drastically. What had she done wrong? Why had the happiness of their family shattered so suddenly? The questions swirled in her mind as she sat there, broken and unable to find answers to the pain that consumed her. The next day, Emily felt exhausted and stuck. She didn't know how to face Michael or where to begin. She needed someone to confide in, and the first person who came to mind was Anna, her best friend from college. Anna had always been someone Emily could trust, someone who had stood by her during her hardest moments. Emily called Anna and arranged to meet at their favorite cafe. When Anna saw Emily, she immediately noticed the exhaustion and pain etched on her friend's face. "What's wrong, Emily?" Anna asked, her voice full of concern. Emily sat down and began recounting everything, from Michael's recent changes to the messages she had discovered. Her voice trembled, and tears flowed freely as she spoke. Anna listened attentively, her eyes filled with empathy and understanding. When Emily finished her story, Anna reached out, held her hand, and said gently but firmly, "Emily, you can't let this continue. You need to uncover the truth and decide what's best for you and your children." "But what should I do, Anna? I don't want this family to fall apart. But I can't keep living like this," Emily said, her voice choked with emotion. Anna looked directly into Emily's eyes and said, "You have to be strong. First, you need to know the full truth, not just from those messages. Maybe you should hire a private investigator to follow Michael. That way, you'll have a clearer picture of the situation. Once you have all the facts, you can decide your next step." Emily sat in silence for a long moment before finally nodding. She knew Anna was right. She couldn't keep living in doubt and fear. She needed to face the truth, no matter how painful it might be. She had to do something to protect herself and her children. Anna smiled reassuringly and added, "I'll always be here for you, Emily. You won't have to face this alone." Anna's words brought Emily a small sense of comfort. She realized she wasn't alone, and no matter how difficult this situation was, she had friends who truly cared for and supported her. Taking a deep breath, Emily resolved to be strong, not just for herself, but for her children. She knew the road ahead would be tough, but she was determined to confront the truth and take control of her life. After her conversation with Anna, Emily decided that she couldn't continue living in uncertainty and suspicion. She had to face the truth, no matter how painful it might be. She refused to be the weak wife who merely waited at home for her husband, hoping things would return to the way they used to be. Emily needed the truth to decide the next steps for her life and the future of her two young children. Sitting at her desk, Emily gazed at the family photos hanging on the wall. Moments of happiness, the radiant smiles of Michael, the loving glances he once gave her and their children, now felt like distant memories. She couldn't understand what had changed or why their love had unraveled this way. She needed answers, and she decided to hire a private investigator to uncover the truth. One morning, after dropping Max and Lucy off at school, Emily visited the office of a private investigation agency that Anna had recommended. She was greeted by Mr. Smith, a middle-aged man with a calm demeanor and a deep, reassuring voice. He sat across from Emily, listening attentively as she recounted her story. "What exactly would you like us to do, Mrs. Emily?" Mr. Smith asked after she had finished. Emily hesitated for a moment before responding. "I want to know everything about the relationship between my husband and his secretary. I want to know where they meet, what they do, and I need evidence so I can confront him." Mr. Smith nodded. "We will do everything we can to help you, Mrs. Emily. We will track Michael and provide you with all the information we gather. Do you have any specific limits on what you want us to investigate?" Emily sighed, her eyes filled with sadness. "I just want the truth. I don't want to hurt anyone, but I can't keep living in lies." Mr. Smith nodded again. "I understand. You can trust that we will handle this discreetly and professionally." After the meeting, Emily felt a small sense of relief. She knew her actions might lead to significant changes. but she could no longer let herself drown in pain and uncertainty. Hiring a private investigator was her first step toward protecting herself and her family, a move she hoped would eventually lead her to the clarity she so desperately needed. In the days that followed, Emily tried to keep everything as normal as possible. She continued to take Max and Lucy to school, went to work, and cared for the household as usual. But deep inside, she was gripped by tense anticipation, waiting for updates from the private investigator. Each time her phone rang, she felt a surge of anxiety, bracing herself for the worst. And then, on a Friday afternoon, the call came. Mr. Smith asked Emily to meet him at his office. When she arrived, he invited her to sit down and placed a folder on the desk. Inside were photographs, images of Michael and Sophia together. They were dining at a fancy restaurant, laughing and chatting, and even holding hands as they strolled through a park. Mr. Smith also presented audio recordings of their conversations, filled with sweet words of affection from Michael to Sophia, the same words he used to say to Emily. As Emily looked at the photographs, it felt as though her world was crumbling around her. The images she had feared only in her nightmares had become a harsh reality. Tears streamed down her face, and the sting of betrayal cut deeply into her heart. She tried to compose herself, but the pain was overwhelming, making it impossible to remain calm. Mr. Smith spoke gently. "Mrs. Emily, I know this is incredibly difficult, but I believe you prepared yourself for this possibility. You need to stay strong, for yourself and for your children." Emily nodded, attempting to regain her composure. She knew she had to face the truth, no matter how cruel it was. She thanked Mr. Smith and took the documents home. That evening, after putting Max and Lucy to bed, Emily sat alone in the living room, staring at the photographs spread out before her. Tears rolled down her cheeks, yet she reminded herself that she couldn't let the pain defeat her. She had to act, to protect herself and her children. She wiped her tears, drew a deep breath, and resolved to confront the situation with the strength she knew was within her. After discovering the truth, Emily spent several days reflecting on everything. She didn't want to act hastily or let anger dictate her decisions. She knew that a wrong move could hurt not only herself but also Max and Lucy, the children she loved more than anything else. Emily began organizing her thoughts. She wrote down what needed to be done and started planning for the future. She couldn't let Michael continue living a lie, but she also didn't want to destroy everything they had built together. She thought about the children and knew they deserved a stable family, even if it might never be whole again. One evening, when Michael came home late as usual, Emily was waiting for him in the living room. She was done hiding her pain. As Michael walked in, she looked him straight in the eyes and said, "We need to talk." Michael looked uneasy but nodded and sat down across from her. Emily didn't mince words. She placed the photos she had received from the investigator in front of him. Michael's face turned pale as he looked at them. He was speechless, his eyes filled with fear and panic. Emily took a deep breath, keeping her voice as calm as possible. "Michael, I know everything. I know about you and Sophia. I tried to trust you, but you've betrayed me and the children. I don't know what to do next, but I can't keep living like this." Michael lowered his head, his voice trembling. "Emily, I'm sorry. I was wrong. I don't know what to say. I got caught up in it, and I didn't know how to stop." Emily stared at him, feeling a hollow emptiness in her chest. His apologies meant nothing to her now. She had loved him, trusted him, and now everything had fallen apart. "I don't need your apologies, Michael," she said firmly. "I just want you to understand how much you've hurt me and the children, and now, I have to do something to protect us." Emily knew that confronting Michael was just the first step. She had to do much more to prepare for her and her children's future. She met with a lawyer to understand her rights in the event of a divorce. She wanted to ensure she could secure custody of Max and Lucy and hold Michael financially accountable for their well-being. Emily was determined that her children wouldn't suffer because of their father's mistakes. The lawyer, a compassionate middle-aged woman named Linda, listened carefully to Emily's story and provided practical advice. Emily, first and foremost, you need to gather all the evidence of your husband's infidelity. These photos will be crucial. Additionally, you should be able to demonstrate that you are the primary caregiver for your children and that you have the financial means to support them. Emily nodded, feeling a small weight lift off her shoulders. She knew this process would be challenging, but she was ready to face it. Linda also advised her not to rush into a decision about divorce but to carefully consider all aspects, particularly the impact on Max and Lucy. Emily wanted her children to understand the situation as gently as possible and avoid unnecessary trauma. Emily also began preparing herself emotionally. She sought the help of a psychologist to share her feelings and navigate the pain of betrayal. The therapy sessions gave Emily a sense of support and helped her realize she wasn't alone in this battle. She learned to confront her emotions, accept that not everything could be controlled, and understand that letting go was sometimes the best way to protect herself and those she loved. Meanwhile, Michael appeared to be genuinely remorseful. He tried to talk to Emily and repair the damage he had caused. But every time he approached her, Emily kept her distance. She needed time to reflect and rediscover herself before making any decisions. She didn't want to be swayed by apologies that she wasn't sure were sincere. Emily leaned on Anna more than ever. Anna was always there, listening and supporting her every step of the way. Anna encouraged Emily to be strong and not let someone else's mistakes define her. "You've done everything for your family, Emily. But now it's time to do something for yourself and for your kids." Emily knew she had a long road ahead, but she was ready. She realized she couldn't keep living in the shadow of betrayal and deceit. She needed to stand up, face reality, and carve out a new path for herself and for Max and Lucy, the children she loved more than anything else in the world. Emily knew that confronting Michael was only part of the story. To truly close this painful chapter, she felt the need to talk to the third party, Sophia. While facing her husband's lover was not an easy decision, Emily believed it was necessary to express her thoughts and establish boundaries. One afternoon, after much deliberation, Emily decided to reach out to Sophia. She had obtained Sophia's number from the investigator's report and sent her a message, asking to meet at a small cafe on the outskirts of the city. The cafe was quiet and intimate, a place where they could talk without interruptions. Sophia arrived, and as Emily watched her enter the cafe, she couldn't help but feel a wave of tension. Sophia appeared youthful and glamorous, with her blonde hair and stylish dress. She sat across from Emily, her demeanor cautious and slightly nervous. "Hello, you must be Emily," Sophia began, her voice hesitant. Emily nodded, maintaining eye contact. "Yes, I am. I believe you know why I wanted to meet you today." Sophia fell silent, lowering her gaze. Perhaps she felt ashamed, or at least a little guilty, about facing the woman whose family she had hurt. Emily studied her, her emotions swirling pain, anger, and even a trace of pity. She realized that Sophia, too, was human and might not fully understand the damage she had caused. "Sophia, I want to be very clear," Emily began, her voice calm but firm. "You interfered in my marriage and hurt my family. I don't know what you were thinking when you got involved with Michael, but you need to understand that he is my husband and the father of our children." Sophia looked up, her eyes glistening with tears. "I'm sorry, Emily. I know what I did was wrong, but I love Michael. I truly believed he didn't love you anymore." Emily interrupted, her tone sharpening. "My relationship with Michael is not something you have the right to judge or interfere in. Michael was wrong, and so were you. But what I need you to understand is that you don't have the right to destroy someone else's family. You don't know what my children and I have been through, and it's not fair to us." Sophia sat there silently, tears streaming down her face as she listened. Emily took a deep breath, steadying herself. She hadn't come here to create a scene, but to ensure Sophia understood the consequences of her actions and stayed away from her family. "You need to realize that everything you do has consequences," Emily continued. "If you have any shred of self-respect, You will leave Michael's life. My children and I don't deserve to be treated like this. Sophia nodded, her voice trembling. I will. Emily, I'm truly sorry. I never meant to hurt you. Emily stood up, feeling as though a weight had been lifted. She knew this meeting wouldn't change the past, but at least it gave her a sense of closure. As she walked out of the cafe, she took a deep breath, the afternoon sun warm on her face. The sky was a clear blue, and for the first time in a long while, Emily felt like she could move forward. While Emily prepared for the confrontation, Michael remained completely unaware of what awaited him. He continued living in the illusion that his affair with Sophia was a secret, and that Emily would never discover the truth. He kept using work as an excuse to stay late at the office, spending time with Sophia, and lying to Emily whenever she asked about his schedule. One evening, when Michael came home, he noticed Emily sitting in the living room, waiting for him with an icy expression. He tried to force a smile, but the look in her eyes immediately made him uneasy. Emily, you're still up? Michael asked, attempting to keep his tone casual. Emily didn't respond immediately, her gaze fixed on him. She watched as Michael hung up his coat and walked into the room. Once he sat down across from her, she finally spoke. Michael, I think we need to talk. Michael flinched slightly, but he tried to maintain his composure. What's this about? Emily didn't answer right away. Instead, she slid a folder across the table, photos and evidence she had received from the private investigator. Michael opened it, and within seconds, his face went pale. His calm demeanor crumbled as his eyes darted over the incriminating pictures. Emily, I can explain, Michael stammered, his voice shaking. Emily cut him off before he could continue. You don't need to explain anything. Michael, I know everything. You betrayed me. You betrayed this family. And I can't continue living like this. Michael felt as if someone had punched him in the chest. He had never imagined Emily would find out, and now guilt and fear overwhelmed him. He lowered his head, unable to meet her gaze, knowing he had lost everything that mattered most. Emily had planned this special day meticulously to reveal the truth about Michael. She decided to host a small gathering at their home, inviting Michael's family members, friends, colleagues, and close acquaintances. Emily wanted everyone to know the truth so that Michael would have to face the consequences of his actions in front of those who mattered most to him. On the day of the party, the house was beautifully decorated with fresh flowers and twinkling lights. Emily prepared a spread of food, drinks, and dishes that Michael loved. Michael was blissfully unaware of Emily's plan, thinking it was just a casual get-together with friends. He mingled with the guests, laughing and chatting, completely oblivious to what was about to unfold. Once everyone was present, Emily decided it was time to reveal the truth. She stood up, raised her glass, and began speaking. Everyone, I'm so happy to have you all here today to share this moment together. But I also have something to share that might come as a surprise to many of you. Michael glanced at Emily, puzzled by her opening remarks. He sensed something was off but couldn't quite figure out what it was. Emily continued, her tone becoming more serious. Michael, do you know that I've discovered your relationship with Sophia? I have all the evidence. And I believe today is the day for everyone here to know the truth. The room fell into complete silence. Shock rippled through the crowd as everyone turned their attention to Michael. His face turned pale, and he froze in place, unable to process what was happening. The eyes around the room bore into him, some filled with disbelief, others with disappointment, and even contempt. Michael felt like the ground beneath him was crumbling. Emily pressed on, her voice firm yet composed. You betrayed me, Michael. You betrayed our family, and you hurt all of us. But I want you to know that I will not let this break me. I will do everything to protect our children and ensure they are not affected by your mistakes. As she spoke, Michael's hands trembled, and his throat felt dry. He opened his mouth to say something, but no words came out. The reality of his actions crashing down on him in front of everyone he knew was more than he could bear. The guests began murmuring among themselves, and the once lively party atmosphere turned cold and heavy. Some people discreetly left the room, unable to bear the tension, while others stayed, their faces etched with shock and judgment. Emily remained standing, her strength evident despite the storm swirling around her. For the first time, Michael truly saw the weight of his actions and the destruction they had caused, not just to Emily, but to everyone who cared about him. He realized that he had shattered not only his marriage but also the trust and respect of the people around him. For Emily, this was a turning point. She had reclaimed her power, confronted the man who had betrayed her, and declared her intentions to move forward stronger than ever. She knew the road ahead would be difficult, but at that moment, she felt a sense of closure and determination to create a better future for herself and her children. The room was engulfed in an oppressive silence. Everyone's eyes were fixed on Michael, their gazes filled with a mix of emotions: disappointment, shock, and disbelief. Michael stood frozen, unable to utter a single word. Shame and guilt weighed heavily on him, suffocating any attempt to defend himself. He realized, in that agonizing moment, that he had lost everything that truly mattered: his wife's trust, the respect of his friends and colleagues, and, perhaps, even his family. Emily's eyes bore into Michael with unwavering resolve and determination. She knew that she had done the right thing, no matter how painful it had been. She could no longer hide her pain or continue living in a facade of lies. This was the only way she could free herself from the anguish and begin anew. Sophia, who Emily had also invited to the gathering, sat in a corner of the room, her head bowed in shame. She felt the weight of her guilt pressing down on her. She knew she had no place there. The stares directed at her were piercing, filled with judgment and condemnation. Sophia realized that she had not only hurt Emily but had also harmed herself by engaging in this relationship. After speaking her truth, Emily felt as though a massive burden had been lifted from her shoulders. She turned to look at her children, the innocent souls she cherished above all else. She knew she had to be stronger, not just for herself but for them as well. "Michael," Emily said, her voice firm and resolute, "I want you to leave the house. I need time to think, to decide what's best for me and the kids. You've lost my trust, and now it's up to you to prove that you deserve this family." Michael hung his head, unable to respond. He knew there was no room for argument, no justification for his actions. He had failed, and now he had to face the consequences. Without a word, he turned and walked out of the house, leaving behind everything he once loved and valued. Emily stood there, watching Michael's silhouette fade into the distance. She felt a mix of sorrow and determination. The road ahead would be challenging, but she knew she was ready to face it. She had done everything she could to save her family, but now it was time to protect herself and her children from further harm. This was the first step on her journey to reclaim happiness, and Emily vowed that she would not allow anyone to break her again. After Michael left the house, the room was enveloped in a haunting silence. The friends and family present at the party seemed unsure of how to react. They had witnessed a truth so painful and shocking that none of them could have anticipated it. All eyes turned to Emily, their gazes filled with sympathy and compassion. She stood there, her expression firm, but the hurt in her eyes was unmistakable. Emily tried to smile at her close friends. "Thank you all for being here today. I'm sorry for making this evening so heavy. I think I need some private time with the kids now." One by one, her friends approached her, offering hugs and words of encouragement. "Emily, we're always here for you." One close friend said softly, "You're a strong woman, and you'll get through this." Anna, Emily's best friend, stepped forward and took her hand. "Emily, you did the right thing. Remember, you're never alone. I'll always be here for you, whenever you need me." Emily nodded, tears streaming down her cheeks. She felt immense gratitude for having such wonderful friends like Anna and the others. Their support gave her the strength to confront this harsh reality. After everyone left, Emily went upstairs to Max and Lucy's room. The children had overheard parts of the conversation and were visibly confused and anxious. Max, the older of the two, looked at his mother with questioning eyes. "Mom, what happened to Dad? Why does he have to leave?" Emily sat down beside her children, trying to keep her voice calm. "Max, Lucy, your dad and I are having some problems, and he needs to be away for a while. But remember, your dad and I love you both very much, and we'll do everything we can to make sure you're happy." Lucy, the younger one, crawled into her mother's lap, her voice innocent and tender. "Will Dad come back? Mom, I want him to stay here with us." Emily hugged Lucy tightly, tears rolling down her face. "I don't know, Lucy, but I promise you, everything will be okay. I'll always be here for you both, and we'll get through this together." In that moment, Emily realized that no matter how broken she felt, she had to be the pillar of strength for her children. She held them close, silently vowing to protect them and give them the love and stability they deserved. After Michael left the house, life for Emily and her two children began to shift. Emily knew she had to be strong, not just for herself but also for Max and Lucy. She was determined that their lives wouldn't remain clouded in sadness forever. She wanted her children to feel the love and warmth of family, even without their father by their side. Emily began reorganizing their daily routines to create a stable environment for Max and Lucy. She maintained their familiar habits, taking them to school, preparing breakfast, and helping them with homework in the evenings. Although Michael was no longer there, Emily wanted her children to continue feeling cared for and loved. Emily also decided to seek a new job. Previously, she had worked part-time to focus on her family, but now she needed a steady income to provide for Max and Lucy. With her skills and experience, she secured a better position at a law firm. This new job gave her confidence and a sense of independence, something she realized she had lost over the years while relying on Michael. Anna remained Emily's steadfast friend, always by her side. She frequently visited to help with household chores and take care of the children. In the evenings, Anna and Emily would sit together, sharing conversations about what had happened and finding ways for Emily to rediscover happiness in her life. One evening, after Max and Lucy had gone to bed, Anna sat next to Emily on the sofa and asked, "Emily, have you thought about what you want to do next? Are you considering divorce?" Emily was silent for a long moment before responding. "I'm not sure yet, Anna. Part of me wants to end it all, but another part doesn't want to hurt Max and Lucy. I don't want them to grow up without their father." Anna nodded, understanding how difficult the decision was. "You also need to think about yourself, Emily. If Michael truly wants to make amends, maybe you could consider giving him another chance. But if you feel there's no love left, perhaps it's best to let go." Emily knew Anna was right. She needed to carefully weigh everything before making her final decision. She wanted her children to be happy, but she also wanted to find peace and joy for herself again. Michael, after leaving the house, had to confront a harsh reality. He rented a small apartment to stay temporarily and tried to find ways to contact Emily. He knew he had made mistakes, and he wanted to make amends for them. However, every time he called Emily, she kept her distance and only spoke with him when necessary about the children. Michael felt lonely and full of regret. He missed the happy days with Emily and their children, the cozy evenings together, the joyful laughter of Lucy and Max when he told them bedtime stories. Now, all of that was just a memory, and he realized he had lost everything because of his weakness and the allure of an extramarital relationship. One morning, Michael decided to see a marriage counselor. He wanted to understand more clearly why he had gone astray and figure out how to repair himself. The counselor helped him reflect on his marriage, the mistakes he had made, and how he could learn from those mistakes. Michael knew he couldn't turn back time, but he could strive to become a better person and a better father for Max and Lucy. He also decided to write a letter to Emily. In the letter, he admitted all his mistakes, expressed his deep regret, and pleaded for an opportunity to make things right. He knew that Emily would not easily forgive him, but he wanted her to know that he was willing to do whatever it took to become the husband and father she and their children had once loved. After several weeks, Emily received a letter from Michael. She read every line, sensing the sincerity and regret in his words. Michael admitted all his mistakes and expressed his desire to make amends. He didn't beg for forgiveness but wanted Emily to know that he was ready to change and do everything for their children. Emily didn't know how to respond. Part of her wanted to believe in Michael's words, to give him a chance to make things right. But another part feared he might hurt her and the children again. She had endured so much and didn't want to fall into the same pain once more. After many sleepless nights of contemplation, Emily decided to give Michael an opportunity to meet their children. She knew that no matter what had happened between her and Michael, he was still Max and Lucy's father. The children deserved love from both their parents. She arranged a meeting at a nearby park over the weekend, so Michael could spend time with Max and Lucy. On that day, Michael arrived at the park with a large bouquet of flowers and a small gift box for Max and Lucy. When he saw his children from a distance, he couldn't hold back his tears. Max and Lucy ran toward him and embraced him tightly. And in that moment, Michael felt as though all his mistakes had been forgiven. He held them close, promising that he would never abandon them again. Emily stood at a distance, watching Michael and the children hugging. She couldn't deny that part of her still loved Michael and cherished the happy memories they once had. But she also knew she needed to be strong and not let her emotions dictate her decisions. The meeting went smoothly. Michael spent time playing with Max and Lucy, telling them funny stories, and sharing ice cream with them. Emily sat on a nearby bench, observing everything, and she felt a sense of relief. She knew Michael truly wanted to make amends, and perhaps he deserved a chance to do so. As the meeting came to an end, Michael approached Emily, his voice full of sincerity. "Emily, thank you for giving me this opportunity. I know I've hurt you and the kids, and I don't expect you to forgive me immediately, but I'll do everything to prove that I deserve this family." Emily nodded, remaining silent. She knew it wouldn't be easy, but she also saw that Michael was trying. And if he was genuinely willing to change, perhaps she could give him a chance to make things right. After the meeting at the park, Emily recognized Michael's efforts. However, she also knew that an essential part of rebuilding their marriage was eliminating anything that could harm it again. That included Sophia's presence in Michael's life. Sophia had stopped contacting Michael after everything was exposed, and she understood that she no longer had a place in his life. Michael had proactively ended the relationship, knowing it was the best decision for everyone. Still, he felt the need to speak with Sophia directly to resolve everything clearly and close that chapter completely. One afternoon, Michael arranged to meet Sophia at a cafe they used to frequent. He wanted to say goodbye and thank her for understanding and accepting his decision. When Sophia arrived, she looked tired and tense. She sat across from Michael, remaining silent. Michael felt a twinge of guilt because, despite everything, Sophia had been an important part of his life for a period of time. "Sophia, thank you for coming," Michael began in a calm voice. "I wanted to meet you to say goodbye and to thank you for understanding my decision." Sophia lowered her head, her voice slightly choked. "I don't have much to say, Michael. I know this is the right thing to do. I just feel deeply sorry for hurting your family." Michael nodded. "I feel sorry too, for everything that happened. But I need to make amends and do the right thing for my family. I hope you can find true happiness. And I wish you all the best." Sophia gave a faint smile. "I wish the same for you, Michael. I hope you can fix your mistakes and become a good husband and father again." They sat in silence for a while, and then Sophia finally stood up. She turned and walked away, with Michael watching her figure fade into the distance. He knew it would be the last time he saw her, and from that moment on, his life would be dedicated solely to his family, the thing he had almost lost. Emily knew that Michael meeting Sophia to end their relationship was a significant step forward, but she didn't want to let her guard down. She had been hurt too deeply, and she couldn't allow herself to be in that position again. She needed to be certain that Michael had truly changed and was committed to making amends. Emily began to focus more on herself. She spent time engaging in yoga and meditation classes to help her relax and regain balance in her life. She also returned to work at her new job at a law firm. The job not only provided her with financial independence but also made her feel confident and empowered. Every morning, Emily woke up early, prepared breakfast for the children, and took them to school before heading to work. In the evenings, she spent time helping Max and Lucy with their homework and telling them bedtime stories. Her life began to stabilize, and she felt she could move past the pain she had endured. Michael also made efforts to prove that he had changed. He frequently called Emily to check on Max and Lucy, and he tried to arrange as much time with them as possible. He no longer used work as an excuse to stay away from his family. Instead, he willingly gave up unnecessary meetings to spend more time with his children. One evening, after taking Max and Lucy out for some fun, Michael stayed back to talk to Emily. He looked her in the eye, his voice filled with sincerity. "Emily, I know what I did is unforgivable, but I truly want to make things right. I want us to start over, not just for the kids, but for you and me too." Emily was silent for a moment, then replied, "Michael, I see that you're trying, and I appreciate that, but I need time to trust you again. I can't forget what happened, and I don't want to rush into any decisions." Michael nodded, understanding that things wouldn't be as easy as he had hoped. But he was willing to wait and do whatever it took to show that he genuinely wanted to change. As time passed, Michael's efforts gradually gained Emily's recognition. He not only devoted time to their children but also tried to show his care for Emily. He invited her to dinner, gave her small gifts, and even cooked dinner for the family a few times. These gestures helped Emily feel Michael's sincerity, and she began to consider giving him a second chance. One evening, after Max and Lucy had gone to bed, Michael sat next to Emily on the sofa and said, "Emily, I know I've hurt you, and I can't change the past, but I want you to know that I truly love you, and I want our family to be whole again. I'm willing to do anything to make things right and prove that I'm worthy of your love." Emily looked into Michael's eyes and saw the sincerity and determination in his gaze. She knew he had changed, and she also realized that she still loved him. After a moment of silence, she replied, "Michael, I'm willing to give you a chance, but you need to understand that this is the last chance. If you hurt me and the children again, I won't come back." Michael felt his heart fill with hope. He held Emily's hand and said emotionally, "I promise, Emily, I'll never let you down again." Emily smiled, and for the first time in a long while, she felt she could trust Michael once more. She knew rebuilding trust wouldn't be easy, but she was willing to try, for their love and for their children. Emily and Michael's life gradually returned to its rhythm. Michael moved back home, and the two worked together to rebuild their family. They spent more time together, engaging in family activities like picnics, cooking meals, and even learning meditation to help reduce stress. They also decided to attend marriage counseling sessions to overcome the remaining challenges. These sessions taught them how to communicate more effectively, understand each other's emotions, and find ways to keep their love strong. The counseling not only helped them address past issues, but also allowed them to gain deeper insights into themselves and each other. Max and Lucy were overjoyed to see their parents together again. Family dinners became warm and filled with laughter. Michael learned to cherish the small moments with his family and vowed never to let work or anything else pull him away from them again. One evening, as the family sat together after dinner, Emily looked into Michael's eyes and said, "I know we still have a lot to work on to get back to where we were, but I believe that as long as we keep trying together, we can overcome anything." Michael held Emily's hand, his eyes brimming with emotion. "I know, Emily. I know how lucky I am to have this chance, and I promise I will never let you or the kids down again." Emily smiled, feeling warmth and love from her husband. She knew rebuilding happiness wouldn't be easy, but she also knew that with effort and love, they could overcome all challenges. Life might not be perfect, But what mattered was that they had learned to love and appreciate each other again. Emily felt a sense of peace she hadn't experienced in a long time. She knew she had made the right decision for herself and for her family. They had endured pain and loss, but those experiences had helped them grow and appreciate happiness more deeply. They had found each other again, and this time, they wouldn't let anything come between them. And so, Emily and Michael's family began a new journey, a journey filled with hope and love. They knew there would still be challenges ahead, but they also knew that as long as they loved each other and remained willing to try, there was nothing they couldn't overcome.